All right, so we've got our first function built. That's our buy items, and that should be working perfectly. And we can see that all spelled out in our code. Now let me show you one of the beautiful things about putting functions in your code. Notice the little drop-down arrow. Let's see if I can zoom in on a little bit. Nope. Okay. Next to the 3 right here, there's a little drop-down. If I click that, then it collapses that whole function. That's what we mean by abstraction. We can hide some of the details of our programs so that we can really just focus on how the program works. So as I come in here, I can see, okay, yeah, there's an import statement, there's a function definition. I don't need to worry about that right now. But as we go through the rest of it, I'm setting some variables, I'm printing a welcome. While purchase is yes, I'm going to return some values from a function call. And then I'm going to ask if they're a loyalty member. So do you see how it simplifies it? We're hiding some of the detail for a bit. If we want to know what that detail is, we can go up and look at this function and see, oh, that's what that function's doing. Those are the values it's returning. But we don't have to see them all the time. So that's what abstraction is all about. So let's go ahead and do the same thing now with our membership loyalty discount. Okay, so calculating the discount. So we've already got, or should already have, this comment right here where we said, okay, I know we're going to need another function. So I'm going to delete the hashtag in front of that function definition so that I can now build the actual function. Just like we did before, we're going to take all of this stuff. Okay, so I'm going to leave the member input question, but I'm going to take the rest of this. So from the if statement, if member is yes, all the way down to line 61 in my code, which is where I end all of the if and else statements. I'm leaving that print statement out there, okay? So I'm going to do a Command X to cut that and go up to my function definition and a Command V to paste. Now really pay attention to the indentation here. When I copy and paste nested conditionals, it often doesn't come through correctly. So this first line is right. This if statement, right, is one indentation over, but the rest of it should be another indentation over. So I'm going to select all the rest of that that's inside of the function definition. So that's from if total down to discount equals 0. Select it all and then just hit tab and that'll move it over one level like it's supposed to be. So just double checking, I have my if, and then I go down, there's my else that pairs with it. And then inside of my first if, I have an if, elif, else all paired together at the right level. Under my else, I have an if and an else paired together. Okay? All right, so let's see what happens with that. I'm sure you can guess it's not going to run perfectly the first time, but let's go ahead and run our code. And I'm purchasing a face, and it costs $3.99. I'm buying 9 of them. This time I'm going to go ahead and say no. I know the loop works, right? So let's go ahead and say no on this. And it's asking me, are you a loyalty club member? I say yes. And now I get an error. Discount's not defined. Nobody knows what's going on. So the same kind of errors that we had before. So let's come down to our main program. And first of all, you can see we're not using our function. So we need to make sure that we're using our function. The second thing we're going to need to be aware of, just to cut some corners because we learned some good lessons from last time. If I come down to the last line of code, it is going to try to calculate a total minus discount. And right now, if I look at this namespace, right, this main level of the program, total exists, but discount does not. Okay, so we know that we're going to have to get the discount back out of our function up here. So looking at this, I can see some things that my function is going to need as input. So if member is yes, where is that coming from? It's not in this namespace yet. And if total is something, then it's going to calculate things. Well, total doesn't exist in this namespace at the moment. So I know I'm going to need both of those things, member and total. Those are going to have to be inputs to this function, or what we call parameters, right? Parameters are information that our function will need to run. Then discount is what's being calculated in this function. That's the big deal. That's what's happening in this function, is that we're calculating the discount. We're finding out how much that's going to be. So that's going to have to be our return. And let's come down to the end of our function. Be careful about where you are. I'm on line 49 of mine code. Yours might be slightly different, but it's at the end of the last else statement after I say that the discount is 0. I'm going to back up 2 levels, right? This is not part of an if or an else statement. It's part of the main function definition. So it should just be 1 level of indentation over, and I'm going to return discount. Okay, so we're sending that discount value out of the function back to the main program. And now I need to catch it, right? I need to save that value somewhere. So out here in the main namespace, I'm going to say discount equals, and now this value is coming because I call the function, right? So I'm going to call my function, which was calculate underscore discount parentheses. And I need to send it 2 pieces of information, the response to the member question and my running total amount. So it can use both of those, okay? So I've got my total right there. I've got to do them in the right order though. So member and then total. So I've got to send those 2 pieces of information into my function. So that's going to say whatever comes out of calling the function, sending their answer to the member question, and my current total of purchases, send me back the amount of discount that person has earned. Okay? So kind of looking again at this pattern of information I'm sending into the function and information I'm getting out of the function. Anything in the main namespace has to be sent into the function for it to work correctly. Anything that I need in the main namespace but that lives inside the function, I've got to return out of the function. So it almost becomes like a loop that's happening where I send things in and I get things out. But I've got to learn how to really call my functions effectively to save the information that's coming out, right? I need a variable for that. To save information requires a variable. So I've got to save the information that's coming out when I call my function, given the information that I'm sending to it. All right, so let's run our program and make sure that it works. So I'm going to buy a face. It's $3.99. I'm buying 9 of them. Let me go ahead and say yes to this to just check our full functionality. I'm going to purchase an ear, and that's $3.99. Oh, apparently $3,999. I want 2 of those. Okay. Would I like to purchase another set? No. Am I a Loyalty Club member? Yes. I've earned a 20% discount. Here's how much it's going to save me, and there's my final total printing out correctly with all of that. Okay, make sure that you test the no direction as well, like test all of the different possible paths that you could go through this program, but I want to show you now what the program looks like. I'm going to go to line 32, I'm going to hide that whole function, and now look at my program. It's an import statement, 2 functions that do some stuff. It looks like one lets me buy items and one lets me calculate a discount. Then I've got some variables that are initialized to start the program, a print statement to welcome my user, and then a loop that's calling my first function and returning a purchase and total. Then I ask a question, then I calculate their discount, and then I print out their final total. It's a really clear, simple program now because I've abstracted the functions away. I've hidden that information in the functions, lines and lines of code now. 65 lines of code, but when I look at it on my screen, it's like maybe a dozen lines of code. So that's what functions are all about, my friends. And now I can reuse these functions if I need to. If I needed to calculate another discount or something like that, I have these at my disposal. All right, make sure you've got this completed and turn it in on Canvas.